Saturday morning, 11 a.m. No better place to be than right here, right now on SBR Sports Picks, sportsbookreview.com. This is the closing line. A busy Saturday. It's rainy in the Northeast. Just saw a football game last night that had some rain. You're going to get it tonight, and in the NFL tomorrow, you're going to get rain in some spots as well. Welcome to the show. Let's have some fun. Break down some football games. I'll be your host today, Donnie Wrightsell, my partner in crime, the big man on campus. Information is king. We got a large card to go over. We got an hour to do it. Big man, what's good?
Doing well, Donnie. How are you?
Good, man.
Looking forward to another Saturday in college football week 2. Do want to tell everyone, Donnie, make sure you hit the like button on the chat. Make sure you say hello and make sure you communicate with us on the chat box. Also, on Twitter, retweet the show. It takes literally 2 seconds to just hit that little square button to retweet the show. Donnie, as we get everyone in here, I do want to make an announcement to everyone about a contest at SBR. I want everyone to take a look at. I've played in it for years. It's a fun contest. You can find it by going to sbrcontest.com. It's Beat the Prick. Beat the Prick is back. If you know anything about the contest, basically you pick 5 games a week, basically between college and pro. And you try to beat the prick. $10,000 to the first place prize, $4,000 to second. The contest link is in the description box if you have trouble finding it. It's very easy. You can go through, you can pick totals, you pick sides, pick whatever you want. And you basically, the only thing you have to do to be eligible is make sure you click those 5 each week. And you can be included in maybe having your chance to beat the prick. Beat the Prick's picks can be found every week at SBR Videos. He does a video with Natalie Rodstrom or whoever. You could figure out who he has. He's not very good as a handicapper. He might be better than me, though, right now. But no, check him out and check that out. It's a fun contest, and you have a chance to win some money. Donnie, let's get into it. We got a lot to do today.
Now, I'd just like to start it off here. Let's some weather spots that we're looking at here. Just taking a look at some of these applications out here. Eastern Michigan and Purdue, 80% chance of rain. Rutgers, Ohio State, 70% chance of rain. Indiana State, Louisville, 63%. Western Illinois, 77% chance of rain. Virginia, Indiana, 77%. Cincinnati, Miami, Ohio, 74%. Got some windy conditions out there, Jeff, in 2 games. Kansas at Central Michigan, about 17 miles an hour, and Western Illinois. So it looks like you're going to get rain and wind in that one up to 20 miles an hour. So some conditions that you might want to certainly check out before you wager on those games. But let's have some fun out here. Let's spin it back. We'll go with the same we did last week on there. Chat box, want to chime in with some games you have some questions on. We'll try to hit as many as we absolutely can here. But the goal of the show is to get that information out to you so we can make some informative decisions and see if we can pick up some money. Why don't we start right off the bat, Jeff? Interesting one. 303, 304. Liberty Army line opened up at 10.5, 12. Now you're seeing a backtrack. Now Army now, Jeff, only favored by about 7.5 at this point. But if we're playing at Mikey Stadium up in West Point, just outside of New York City, there's rain up there in the forecast. One would think, Jeff, Liberty, and I'm going to assume that Liberty's not a triple option team of the likes of Army, Navy, and Air Force out there. Line dropping, but bad weather. Shouldn't that favor Army?
Yeah. I mean, it should favor Army, but I do want to make it clear, Donnie. I mean, West Point, here's the thing about weather. I can look as much as I want at the weather, and it says it's going to be cloudy for the entire game. Whether there's weather or not. But yeah, look, weather's going to suit Army a little bit more. Liberty wants to go pretty quick. They want to throw the football. I have some wonders about their mental state of this game. This is a team that came off a real big win last weekend, a real big blowout win last weekend. First win in Division I. Now you got to take your show on the road and go play an Army team that's always tough. The problem we have at Army is, I talked about it at IFBC, what do you have at quarterback? You lost a lot of talent on last year's team, particularly on the defense. I think this line's probably right around where it should be. I think Liberty, again, I wonder where their mental state is. Are they kind of over that? Is this a letdown game for them? I don't think any game should be a letdown for Liberty, but I think if it's going to be rainy there, it probably would suit the Army in this game. But I don't know. I have a tough one with this. In a way, I want to take Army, but then again, I wonder. Are they very good? I just don't know. You're muted.
307, 308, Jeff. We'll keep it moving down the list. Georgia Tech, South Florida. Line opened up at 3. Chris opened up at 2. Sitting at 3 across the board. So South Florida getting some respect here, but still a slight underdog. Georgia Tech coming into this battle. Obviously, we know we'll another triple option type team, but a little higher in the way of, the athletes they can recruit as opposed to Navy and Army here. What can we look at, Jeff? USF versus Navy. USF versus my tech board going down here. USF, Georgia Tech. Sheesh.
Yeah, Georgia Tech's obviously a triple option team. South Florida lost a lot on that defensive line last year, including guys like Bruce Hector, who's now in the NFL with the Eagles. Those are big losses on that defense. Georgia Tech's a team that literally is just going to say, we're going to run the ball, stop it. It's humid, it's hot. That's a tough thing to stop, and you deal with 60, 70 rushes per game. Paul Johnson doesn't get away from that. It's run the football. That's what we do here. 439 yards in their first game. I wouldn't think it'd be any different here. South Florida does see the option kind of frequently with Navy, but over the years, they haven't had a lot of success stopping it. Can Blake Barnett move the ball? The former Arizona State quarterback. He had a pretty decent game in his first game, but Elon, there's no real indication on anything there. I would probably lean over the number here. I think both these teams can get going offensively. South Florida is going to obviously want to go through the air and Georgia Tech on the ground. I'd be more inclined to think that there's points here, but I think Georgia Tech's probably the right side as well. I'm just not crazy ever about laying road prices. I lean Georgia Tech, though.
Yeah, taking a look at 309, 310, Jeff, the Battle of Michigan here, Western Michigan versus Michigan. The interesting point of view that I want to look at this game is obviously saw last week with Western Michigan getting rolled up on defense from Syracuse, but Syracuse, a hurry-up offense, much better than the Michigan offense. I think we can all agree to that. But Michigan's going to come into this game on defense. They have a stout defense. What gave Michigan problems last week? An athletic running quarterback that can break down. If the play breaks down, he can get loose, pick up some yards, and does have a decent arm. That's not what's going to happen today with Western Michigan. Is this a case where Michigan can just overpower Western Michigan, Jeff? One of those games where Michigan holds a team to under 150 yards or under 200 total yards and just establishes the line of scrimmage and runs over Western Michigan? Or is everything real? Shea Patterson going to stink again this week? Is the play calling going to stink? And it's 28 points. So you got to blow this team off the field. Is Michigan even capable of scoring 28 points, it seems like?
Well, I think they're capable. They got to get the run game going a little bit. And if you know anything about Western Michigan, they can't stop anybody. They had trouble last week. The Broncos need to shore up a defense, and I'm not sure this is where you want to try to shore it up. This is a tough game against a pissed-off team that I'd imagine had a tough week of practice, and they're going to be a little bit more timely as far as, no mistakes, a better offense. I'd imagine if you're the Wolverines, you want to go out and let Shea Patterson kind of show out. But the problem we have with Harbaugh is he never seems like he wants to do that. It's time to let this guy go, let him do his thing. I worry about Western Michigan's defense. I'd be more inclined to think Michigan can score points as opposed to Western Michigan stopping anybody. I get a feeling this one is like kind of what you said at the beginning, where Michigan just kind of shuts the more lower level team down, and they only have 130 yards, and they scored 10 points. This has the look to me of 41-10, 44-10. I would say they would cover. It's not a pick of mine. It's kind of gone to the head, but I think Michigan will kind of right the wrongs this week. They're, at the end of the day, a very good defense.
Yeah, certainly an overreaction week. Air Force, Florida Atlantic, Jeff, 317, 318. The line opened up at 10. Now you're going to see that across the board at -8. Chris intertops 5 dimes. A lot of the public here obviously getting a good dose of Florida Atlantic, seeing them get absolutely shellacked by Oklahoma. Were we surprised that they lost to Oklahoma? No, I think we're surprised at the complete ineptness of Florida Atlantic. Now you're going to Air Force, a triple option team coming down there. They do have a really good running back in Singleton. If they can just establish the line of scrimmage, hand this kid the football, or get him 20 to 25 touches, they should be okay in this one. But sometimes what you see is what you get. They're going to come now after getting their tail whipped, now have to play another really disciplined football team on both lines of scrimmage and having to stop the triple option. Can they do it here?
Well, the question is, did Air Force get better against the run? They were 123rd in the country last year at stopping the run. You have a FAU team back at home here, back in a friendly confines of Boca Raton, that I would imagine want to kind of get the bad taste out of their mouth after last week. They were destroyed on really every level. they get a better opponent here, a team that's not going to be as potent. They don't throw the football a whole lot, and when they do, it's not as effective. Florida Atlantic needs to get going, and they usually deal with teams like this pretty well. They had a lot of success last year against G5 teams. They really only lost to P5 teams. They lose to P5 teams. Just is what it is. I'm not sure that the Air Force is any different. Their main issue is stopping the run. Air Force has never been able to do it. And Florida Atlantic, I think, is going to lean on Singletary. They're going to have better quarterback play. The only thing that I was a bit off on this game was, if you look at the Boca Raton weather, they are calling for rain basically to start at around game time. Your concern here is kind of the concern you had last night in that game. How bad is the rain? Are there delays? All that kind of thing. In a game like this, Air Force is more suited for a delay. They're just the truth of the matter. When you're getting Army, Air Force, Navy, they're much more inclined to deal with delays. They're just, Donnie, I hate to say this, or actually I don't hate to say it. I actually say it with pride. Our military people, whether they're in school, whether they're on the battlefield, they're just better humans than we are. They're more inclined to deal with stress and pressure than I am. It's just the truth. They don't panic. They don't get involved in worry. They just kind of deal with what's going on, and they're good. That's what they teach you being at those places. So if something like that would happen, I'd be more inclined to take Air Force. But weather looks like it'll be good enough. Florida Atlantic should roll here. This is a good matchup for them.
Yeah, no, you're right about the academies there. I mean, that's what they're built for. That's what they go through their hell week for. That's what they train for. That's what they go to boot camp for. Adversity, fighting through conditions. Hey, problem solving. You got to get to that other side of the mountain. I'm going to give you a piece of rope over here and get good luck and go do it. That's what they do with the academies. They are built for that. You're right. So if there's going to be a delay, no delay, most kids are like, man, I can't wait. That's just, par for the course for them. Jeff, I want to talk about this game coming up at noon, 321, 322. Duke Northwestern, the SAT Bowl, the smartest combination of two schools getting after it, maybe all year long, Jeff, in Division 1A football or Power 5 conferences. Look at the line. It opens up 3, now sitting at 2.5. This is going to be a really good one. Two offenses, not high-powered, but smart with the football. But who's going to play that higher brand of football today? I like the way Northwestern's played the past couple of years. Duke has its spots. They're up, they're down. But now Duke's going to go on the road in this tilt here to play Northwestern. It's a low line. Not a lot of respect for Northwestern. We did see them play pretty well game one. Same thing with Duke. But what can we anticipate out of this game here? Two smart teams.
Yeah, I soured on this game as the week went on. I mean, you look at this line, the first thing you kind of ask yourself is, you look at some of the top 10 wagers and things like that. Northwestern leads the list. People love Northwestern this week. Yet the line, before we went on the air was at 2. Now it's at 2.5. You have the number coming down. This is a big concern here. Public doesn't generally like Duke, especially this year. They don't think Duke, are on Northwestern's level, which I think to be kind of crazy. Northwestern's good, but I don't know if you're going to get a full day from Thorson. I also wonder, Duke has a good secondary. Duke is a good defense. Northwestern is a team that struggles on defense in the secondary. How will they deal with this Daniel Jones offense? Daniel Jones, they kind of run the same offense as the Eagles now. They're very run-pass option oriented. They're going to hit you through the air. They're a pretty good offense. This game is just weird to me. I don't know why the line's coming down. It doesn't make any sense to me. For me in that one, crazy to say, but I kind of at this point lean Duke. The line move makes no sense. This kind of that 12 o'clock game that I think is going to get a lot of people.
Yeah, right off the bat there. Jeff Vitalis chiming in the chat box. He wants to look at 391, 392, a 10:15 Eastern time kick. So for all you guys out there struggling with your day in football, didn't have a good baseball day, college football, this might be your chance to double down. He wants to talk about the total, Jeff. Opened up at 64, 62. Now sitting around 64.5. And this is a UConn team, Jeff, that I always like to say makes my eyes bleed when I watch them. But if you're looking at a total that high with the point spread of 33, they expect points to be had, and they expect a Boise blowout on turf. Connecticut going all the way from the right coast to the left coast out there to play against Boise. Do we see a lot of points here? Can UConn? I'm not even going to say UConn can keep up. What are we looking at? Maybe if UConn can get to 24 points, is that possible versus Boise on the road?
I don't think it is. You look at them on offense, they're pretty one-dimensional. They don't have really a great quarterback. Boise's just way better at every position than they are. I guess this is kind of the big problem when you have these totals, because you saw it last night with Southern Methodist TCU. I mean, the dog can't score enough points, and that's kind of UConn's problem. I think they'll give plenty of points up. I'd expect Boise State to lean, pushing 50. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they push 60, honestly. And if they do that, the game will go over. I'd be more inclined to take a team total as opposed to dealing with an over, because the problem you have in these kind of games is one side will do their part and they'll put up 45, 50 points, and then the other side will put up 10 and it's 50-10 and you lose. I'd be more inclined to say that I'm going to just expect points from Boise. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they score in every drive they have. UConn are not bad. They're horrendous on defense. So Vitalis, I would be more inclined to say I'd go with a team total as opposed to a total, because this has every makings to me of like 49-13 and you lose like by a point or something. I'd take Boise team total as opposed to.
Yeah, when you can run the rock like Boise, we always talk about late in the game when you're going against a bad defense. If there's 6 minutes to go and their MO is running the football, these young kids still want to bust it out. Mississippi State, Kansas State, Jeff, 323, 324. We take a look here. Line opened up at 7.5. That's dipped below a touchdown in many outlets right now. Mississippi State getting their quarterback this week off of suspension, heading into the Little Apple. What can we anticipate from Old Man Winter's squad for Kansas State today? Can they hang around? Does Mississippi State say, yo, we're the SEC, we're coming here, we're going to blow you out of here?
Yeah, at this number, it's only one side for me. It's Bulldog City. I don't get the move. I don't. Sharps generally like Kansas State. I mean, I don't quite understand it. Listen, Bill Snyder is, I don't know. I mean, he's old, so I guess we have to give him respect. But listen, I've never been a big fan of the guy, frankly. I think he's just one of those boring old coaches that just doesn't do anything that excites me. I think if you live in Manhattan and you're a Kansas State fan, you love Bill Snyder, but I think the rest of us just kind of wonder. He's a very poor bowl coach. He's never won anything, really. He's just one of those mainstay guys at a mid-level university that's been there a long time, so he's got a lot of wins. As far as their situation today, I don't think they have a quarterback. Both quarterbacks had really struggled last week. He made it clear to the media they still don't know who the quarterback is. Mississippi State comes in here with a freight train offense. Joe Moorhead and Nick Fitzgerald will be a good match together. They just will. And Kansas State throughout the years have had major issues stopping the pass. I don't think it's any different here. If you're getting under a touchdown, I'd pounce on Mississippi State.
And how about this one, Jeff? Heisman hopes already crashed last week, or can they be resurrected? 325, 326. In the past, you would think this game would explode on the scoreboard and have it popping like in the movie The Natural, Jeff, when Roy Hobbs went deep and crushed one off the lights. They blew up like fireworks. Look at this, -3 across the board right now. Over under opens at 65.5, 66, 70.5 now is the total. We're expecting some fireworks, but I don't think anybody was too happy last week with Khalil Tate's offensive performance and the swagger-copter Kevin Sumlin flying into town to resurrect that team. Didn't look good, but Houston, a little bit more mobile and quarterback on their side. They're going to run some spread. They're going to try to put some points up on the board. Does Arizona find its way this week, or did Rich Rod just have that magic key for Khalil Tate?
Well, I think one thing about week one you have to remember is some teams are trying things. They're trying to make sure that and understand that things work, and I guess they're not trying to be too cute. I don't know, but I don't know what Arizona's goal last week was. I mean, I just don't think they put Khalil Tate in a position to win. I don't think it was a particularly strong kind of game plan. This is a tough game, though. I mean, this is an early start for them. It's basically 10 o'clock a.m. their time. In Houston, it's hot, it's humid, it's a little bit different climate. I mean, out where they're at, it's a little bit less humid. I know it's still hot, though. That's not a huge deal, but it's an early start, which is a concern. I look for Ed Oliver to be kind of a spy, if you will, or some kind of handler of Khalil Tate. Until Khalil Tate and that team kind of shot on offense, I really can't, be too interested in them. I wonder about their run game. You got to let Khalil Tate get out and run with the football. You got to let him get out and play his game. Let him do his thing. When you make him throw 40 times a game, that's a bad game plan, and that's what they did last week. It has to be a different one. As far as the total, it's high. You're right, but these teams are pretty explosive. I mean, both of them could just get into one of those shootouts where they just match. This could be a fun game. The weather looks pretty decent down in Houston. Rain seems to be out of there. A lot of people are taking the under here. I get a feeling it's more of a shootout, Donnie. I got to say, because I don't see either defense. They might be decent early, but I think towards as kind of the game goes on, I think it's more of a score match. I'm leaning more towards an over here. I think it's like a 41-31 type of game.
Big point swing in the next one. We'll talk about 331, 332. UCLA and Oklahoma. Line opened up at 25 at Chris. It's now sitting at 35 dimes, even sporting a minus 30.5. Definitely an overreaction here. Did Chip Kelly squad, have a rough week last week? Yes, they did. Did everybody see Oklahoma paced everybody's, sweetheart team, FAU? Yes, they did. But that number almost moved a full touchdown here. What are we going to get out of Oklahoma? Is everything believable from what we saw last week on both ends of the ball? Or can Chip Kelly come in and say, look, I'm going to run my offense out here, and look, I'm getting 30 points in this game. I can keep it close.
Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts in this one. 30 points. I mean, when was the last time UCLA was getting this amount of points to anyone? I mean, have they ever been a 30-point underdog? It just seems kind of crazy, and it seems like a bit of an overreaction to Oklahoma as well. Oklahoma looked great last week, but is that something they can maintain all season? They still have a defense that I wonder about, but do I trust anyone on, a lot of people think UCLA could have a real tough year. It doesn't seem like they have a quarterback. I mean, I don't know how Wilton Speight keeps winning jobs, but he does. This looks like an overreaction on both sides, but it's that number for a reason. It's a pass for me, though. I have no interest in it.
Yeah, just looking at some numbers changing, obviously, with the games coming up at 12 o'clock, these lines are going to move around. Some good action now. 5 dimes dropped a full point to 69 in that Arizona-Houston game. So it looks like some money coming in. Chris just dropped theirs to 69.5. So 70's now just about gone across the board. Chris now moved to 69 even. So they moved a 1.5. It looks like already in some early action here. So we'll see. Maybe the rain is still in Houston, Jeff, or in that, Dallas Metroplex rolling through the plains out there in Texas. We'll see what happens in that game. But it should be an interesting one, and one that you keep your eye on to see, look, did Sumlin ruin that offense, or can they just get it going with just a blip on the radar? We'll keep it moving down here, Jeff. A little bit of action to talk about. And I know Kansas, always near and dear to your heart, 335, 336. Kansas, Central Michigan, line opened up at 7. Look at this movement, Jeff. Line opens up at 7. Kansas, money coming in, drives it down to 3. Does Kansas pick up a win here over the MAC opponent?
I mean, go ahead and bet it, but if you're betting Kansas, good luck. I mean, I'm not really sure what changes from this team week to week. To me, Central Michigan has no business losing this game. I think the roster's okay. It's not one of their better ones. I mean, Cooper Rush ain't walking through the door here. But I think Tony Poljan's a pretty good quarterback.
Yeah, Poljan's huge. That guy's. He's the. You know what they used to do with him last year, Jeff? They used to run the Wildcat with him. He's literally looks like a bit like if you had like Dallas Goedert or the Eagles. That's what it looks like playing quarterback. It's interesting.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, I mean he's 6'7", 235. Yeah. So I mean he's a big guy. And he's a pretty good player. I mean the problem that they've had at CMU is they can't keep running backs healthy. I mean Romello Ross is injured. They have Spalding's injured. This Jonathan Ward, though, has played pretty well for them. I just, I can't bring myself to bet on Kansas. I mean, now the fact that it's down to 3 points. I mean, you're up in Mount Pleasant, always a pretty good home atmosphere. I think Central Michigan has every thought in their head that they can surely win this game. Should be a good fan game. At 3, Donnie, I don't see what people see here. I think Kansas is bad.
Yeah, maybe we have some rain or weather going through there because it should be an ugly game. We're looking at an over-under in a college football game, Jeff, at 46.5, and that's a MAC football team playing a quote-unquote Power 5 football team. You usually would see some points in that game, but 46.5 is enough to tell you it all. How about this one, Jeff?
Yeah, we're good on weather there, Donnie. Clouds and sunshine all day, yeah.
All right, 339, 340, Memphis and Navy, Jeff, another institution for the American people. The Navy midshipmen going up against Memphis. Looks like we have a nice little split here, but take a look at these lines, Jeff. Memphis opens up at 3.5 across the board, now sitting at 6.5 and 7. Got some monster line movements going on in some of these lower football games outside the Power 5. Memphis and Navy, we saw Navy, Jeff, last week go up and get routed by a really nice offense, which, Memphis is going to be able to put some points on the board. Is this just an overreaction to say Navy can't get it together on defense, and no matter what happens, anybody with any weapons and a decent quarterback and wideouts is going to slice them up? But does Navy get back to what they do best and say, look, we're going to keep this close on the ground and maybe take the touchdown?
I pretty much talked about this, Donnie, for years. You can go back to 4 years ago when I started videos at SBR, when I was a fresh, young-faced kid coming into a new job on the air with a long-time guy in this business, Peter Loshak. He was cleanly shaven with a buzzed haircut. And him and I used to talk about overs in this conference, overs in this conference, overs in this conference. You just kind of go with it. If it loses, it loses. But these two teams scream offense, Donnie. I mean, let's be honest here. Memphis has never had success against the triple option. Navy can't stop you, me, and 10 listeners or 9 listeners. And you just kind of hope that they, it's 44-35. I have no interest in the side. I mean, I mean, it's high, but it's really not that high for this conference. I mean, the only thing that would have me up, concerned is the weather. Annapolis is kind of right in the middle of this weather stuff. I mean, a lot of scattered weather throughout the day. The big thing about right now why it's unsettled on the East Coast is a cold front has moved through. It's cold. It's not cold here, but it's cool. I mean, it's in the 60s here, and that's giving you a lot of pop-up thunderstorms. You should be okay weather-wise here, but listen, I'm not taking anything but over the number. It's funny, Donnie, because Annapolis is literally kind of in the middle of all this weather. It's raining up in Pennsylvania. It's raining in like southern Delaware and southern Maryland, but Annapolis is kind of in the middle and they're clear. So, yeah, if the weather's clear here, I'd go over.
Heading down to Carolina, 341, 342, Jeff, North versus East. And again, we talked about it earlier in the week here. East Carolina, not a really good showing to lose to an in-state rival. You didn't lose to like NC State, Jeff. You didn't lose to like a Wake Forest. I mean, one of those type of teams there. You lost to a lower level program. Isn't it MEAC? Was that the conference they lost to, Jeff?
What team are we talking about here?
We're talking about ECU. Was it a MEAC team?
ECU lost to a MEAC team, yes.
MEAC team, yes. So now we're headed there. North Carolina didn't show up that well. Still a lot of guys on suspension, but people know what they see. A lot of people watch that ECU game because it was a standalone game, Jeff, delayed for one day. Not much going on during the day. We all got to tune in and watch. East Carolina, I will say for this, look, you can't lose to that, but there was some extenuating circumstances, pick sixes, or they just couldn't punch it in. Can they get it back today? Because we're looking at a North Carolina team that, does go on the road, and they're laying more than 2 touchdowns. Because the question to me is, I think ECU can score. I'm not so sure that North Carolina is just going to say, look, I'm going to roll my helmet out there and drop 3 touchdowns on you guys.
Yeah, this total seems a bit high for me at 59. Like, I think North Carolina can score. I don't love their offense, though. I think without Surratt and without really any playmakers, I think they're hamstrung. But I think they can, let's say, put up 30. I wonder, can East Carolina move the ball? I mean, they couldn't move the ball really last week against NCA&T, so I don't really know how they're going to move it against a faster and stronger defense here. I lean under. I know this program pretty well, Donnie. I do and you know this, and shout out to anyone that's out close to this area and wants to listen. Every Thursday, I do a call-in with Pirate Radio 1250 in Greenville. And, look, they've talked to me about ECU and how they're going into this game with an expectation that they can hang in the game because it's a game where you are getting a team that is a bit low right now as far as players. They have guys suspended. There's not a ton of optimism around the program. ECU's kind of the little brother here. It seems like too many points. If this was a healthy UNC team, I would say okay, but and the numbers dropped to 15, so you kind of lost some value on ECU. But I think the game's low. I think it's like maybe 31-17 or something. I'd go under.
Another one coming up here, Jeff, one of those look-ahead spots. If you're looking for a look-ahead spot yesterday, you probably had it with TCU and SMU. Rain coming down, delay, Gary Patterson trying to get these guys focused. Meanwhile, they're, sledgehammer, grand slam, circle the calendar the minute it was scheduled a couple of years ago. Game versus Ohio State was on deck the following week. They took care of business. That line was 23, 24, 25, whatever you got it at, covered that line easy. We're going to get that same situation today, Jeff, 343, 344, Rutgers and Ohio State. Ohio State knows a tougher team is on deck for the following week. Still no Urban Meyer on the sidelines, but he was able to coach this week. But the one thing that you usually get out of Ohio State, Jeff, which, again, they can be pricks at times, but they don't stop. They don't care. They don't care what the score is. They have 16 five-star running backs that are all trying to get their burn. They have 5 five-star quarterbacks all trying to get their burn. Everybody is trying to show out in the horseshoe because their mom, dad, and the whole state of Ohio is watching at this time. Evidence of the last week where, Oregon State, where it was like, oh, Oregon State's going to cover. And in the blink of an eye, they will house you 3-4 touchdowns in 7 or 8 minutes. Can it happen today? I mean, undermanned Rutgers coming to town. Do you put any stock in, Jeff? Let's get in, let's get out. We got a really tough game next week against a formidable TCU team. Or do they just say, let's just roll the football out there and beat the shit out of, Rutgers?
I mean, has there been any other team, Donnie, it seems like that wins games by a wide margin more than Ohio State?
60, 70 points.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like every game they just crush teams. And you look at Rutgers, I mean, you got to be a bit concerned about this team. I mean, Arthur Sitkowski making his second collegiate start, and you got to see Nick Bosa in front of you. And, I mean, he's a true freshman. This is interesting, though. I mean, McNulty, the coordinator at Rutgers, used to coach kind of around Greg Schiano. You wonder about that chess match. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, the big question is, do you think Rutgers can put up 20 points? If you could put up 20 points, I guess you have a chance of covering here. To me, this seems like a 51-17 type of game or something like that. Yeah. I think it's right around the number. It's not a game that I'm looking to bet on. You saw last night, I mean, it didn't seem to bother TCU. They seemed to kind of get it straight and get going. It didn't really matter there. They had a tough little start, but teams like this, you don't really worry about starts. They kind of explode in the second half. I've learned over the years it's best to just avoid Ohio State if you're not interested in them. They usually find a way to drop 60, 70 points anyway. Donnie, I wanted to comment on one of the things on the chat here. Someone says, Big Man actually gets hot girls. So what? You didn't think I could get hot girls? Actually? Like, what's that supposed to mean, Donnie?
Big
Man actually can get girls. I know I don't look like Donnie, but hey,
he's Rico Suave,
Rico Suave, bro. But yeah, I thought that was a funny comment. Does Michigan slap around Western? Yeah, we talked about that one. Did a rule. It's not a game I'm in love with. I think they're more inclined to play well than to not cover that game if you could figure that out. A couple other comments here. I love Florida today. What do you think? Well, I mean, look, Kentucky hasn't beaten Florida since 1986. So, I mean, you're
waiting on it. Yeah, they're waiting on it. Every year is the year.
The problem is, I mean, the matchup's not particularly good for Florida or for Kentucky. Kentucky wants to establish the run with Benny Snell. Florida is terrific against the run. You're always in the back of your head, though, worried about Felipe Franks. It's more of a stay away for me. Kingu about business, saying some kind things. We thank him for that. Donnie, what else do we have here tonight?
Yeah, how about the city of brotherly love? 345, 346. Buffalo coming to town. Bills Mafia on board here, running into the city of brotherly love. But pouring rain, Jeff. 4 to 5 inches yesterday, getting pounded all today. Now, the good thing about it is this isn't rudimentary football. This isn't high school football in a sand pit. The field will be tarped. It's kind of interesting to see, what comes around game time because the 3:30 start in Philadelphia. Does the rain stop? Because if the rain stops, obviously the field's not going to be in bad condition because it just wasn't left open all night. They do tarp these in the bigger stadiums here. But coming into it, most people didn't like the way Temple looked. Hey, you lost to Villanova. Now you're going to come back and play a Buffalo team that scorched a lesser opponent. But look, they did put up some big numbers in that game. They do have some talent. Lance Leipold's got that team moving in the right direction. And here we go. Opens up at 5, 6.5, Jeff. But with the weather and the rain in Philadelphia, over-under is dipping from 52.5 to 51. And I'm seeing a lot of 4s out there across the market. Temple maybe undervalued in the spot because I think we can say, even though Buffalo does have some nice components, quarterback, running back, got a couple big receivers. Temple's probably going to be the more physical football team. But are you getting them a little bit cheaper price because of how they went against Villanova?
Yeah, I think you are. I mean, this number's come down significantly. People are thinking about last week and how they played. I've said all week I think Temple's the play in this game. I don't like Buffalo on the road. I think the weather conditions make it adverse. I wonder how Tyree Jackson deals with it. But again, I mean, he's no stranger to weather. I mean, up in Buffalo, they get weird weather kind of all season. The problem is they failed to cover an 8 of 12 on the road. Temple are a very good ATS team. They always have been. They've been a good road team for years. They've also covered 5 straight as a home favorite of 3.5 to 10 points. They cover these kind of numbers down. I don't want them above 10 points. I don't want to lay double digits with Temple. But at 4, I think they're the right play. I think they find a way to get out of here. I think they're better than what they showed last week. But again, there's an issue. It comes with a problem. Can Temple run the football? You look at last week, 46 rushing yards on 22 attempts. Okay, that's a little over 2 yards a carry. It's not good enough. And in conditions like today, it's going to rain. Can you run the ball? Can you take some pressure off Newtown? Because you seemingly weren't able to do it last week.
Yeah, 347, 348, Jeff. SEC tilt here. Georgia, South Carolina. Usually we get a nice little Vern Lundquist in the afternoon, but it's a shame we don't get that anymore. But it still should be a good one here. A lot of people lining up, I know, to get in. But look, the line hasn't moved that much. Opened up at 9. Now you're sitting, you can get some 10s out there. Maybe that's a breaking point because we all know when you cross some of those thresholds, the 3s, the 6.5s, getting the 10, the 13.5 to 14, you're going to cross one of those thresholds here that says Georgia's got to go in to hostile territory in SEC play and put an ass kicking on South Carolina. I don't know if they can do it. Look, they're a really good football team, but they got to win by more than double digits here.
Yeah. Look, I like South Carolina. I think they can win this game, frankly. I think we're all kind of, we love Georgia, and for good reason. Georgia's a good football team, but there are wholesale changes on this defense. This is a tough game. Second game out of the season, on the road, tough atmosphere. That stadium down there is terrific. I mean, you talked about it, I think, earlier on the roundtable this week.
Yeah.
They're really good offensively. I mean, they're a team that are going to sneak up on you. They're really good moving the football. Yeah. Bentley's a good quarterback. Dowdy in the backfield. I think Deebo Samuel's the best player no one's heard of in this country. I think if you're getting double digits at home, I'm inclined to take South Carolina. It wouldn't surprise me if they find a way to win this game. I think Muschamp, this is his biggest game yet, and I think they can beat Georgia. It wouldn't surprise me if they do. I'll lean taking the points here, baby.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. How about another one here, Jeff? Ball State MAC team going into play Notre Dame, which always, makes me laugh here. 3:30 start, national game, which Notre Dame has their own network, which I don't even know how that's even physically possible, allowable under NCAA guidelines. But they do hype it up as come watch Notre Dame play on national TV against Ball State. Here we are, Jeff, at 35 points. So you're going to have to beat the rumble over this team by 5 touchdowns or more, coming off one of those big wins, emotional wins, night one wins to get that season going. Do you sort of have a little bit of a letdown here? Because, look, we ain't talking about 7 points. We're talking about 35.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really have a letdown if you're Notre Dame. I mean, they play tough games all the time, so I think they're kind of more inclined to say, you know what, we got to just take care of business. I'm not looking to bet against them. Ball State are a bad team. I think they really struggle to move the ball. I mean, Michigan struggled to move the ball. How do you think Ball State's going to do? You're right, though. It is a big number. I didn't look much into the game. It's not a game that I'm really interested in. I'd be gun to my head, take Notre Dame.
How about the Battle of Iowa today? If you like offense, hey, don't ever tune into an Iowa Hawkeyes game. It seems like each week they set college football back 50 to 60 years, back to leather helmets and the times where, forward passing was not really an option. Kirk Ferentz, to me, one of the, I don't know what Iowa likes. Maybe like everybody's just really nice in Iowa and you can get them like 5 or 6 wins a season. They're willing to pay you like $8 or $9 million a year. But Iowa football fans, outside of like Kansas and watching their team, what enjoyment do you get out of watching Iowa football out there where they just run into the line of scrimmage for 2.5 yards and hope the other team makes a mistake and maybe you could throw a forward pass to win the football game. But Iowa State comes to town, Jeff, getting a lot of respect. Line across the board, 3.5 only to Iowa. So basically just a home field advantage at this point. But you're not looking at a really interesting game. 46 is the over-under. Does Iowa set the game back another 50 years today, or can they move the football and pick up a nice win?
I'd much rather get 3 in this game instead of 3.5. I think it's a pretty close game, but I would go Iowa here. I think they're the better team. I think defensively they're better. I think they will shut down David Montgomery, who's a pretty good player if you don't know. But you're right. I mean, it's not a game I generally spend much time on. I think Ian Cameron likes Iowa State in this game. I don't think anyone will be shocked by a win in Kinnick Stadium for the Cyclones, but I look at what Iowa State's going to want to do. It's run the ball. I never really want to bet against Iowa when it comes to will the team be able to run the ball against them. They're generally very good on the defensive end. They're slow, methodical. I think offensively they're better. I just think they're really better at every position. It's a tough game. I'm not really getting a great number on it. I think it's a pretty close game, but if it came down to who am I picking, I think Iowa at home is the best side here.
361, 362, Maryland Bowling Green. Jeff, reason I like to bring this up because there's another game in there. We say, you know what? Maryland looked good. They upset a team week one. Maybe they partied a little bit too much, Jeff, because you can never go to Dwight Perry Stadium and try to get involved over there and try to pick up an easy win against Bowling Green. The one thing that you always like about Bowling Green is the moniker, if you're taking a total, is their Falcon fast offense. What destroys MAC teams more than anything, Jeff? A couple mobile quarterbacks that, because if you ever watch MAC football, which a lot of us do, maybe you wait to get those Tuesday, Wednesday night MAC matchups. Usually the hardest thing for a MAC team to do is to get any pressure on the quarterback whatsoever. And you're probably not going to do that against a Maryland team here. They looked decent on offense last week. Not going to get much resistance out of Bowling Green, but the one thing you like about Bowling Green, Jeff, is they're going to go 100 miles an hour. They're going to get after it. Whether or not they score, if they 3 and out, Jeff, it's 32 seconds. So you're going to get a lot of possessions in this football game. But the only question I have is Maryland. I would actually like it a little bit more, Jeff, if Maryland was at home in this game. Where you had that home crowd, they could feed off it. You're going to go to a sort of a sleepier type environment. And maybe a Maryland team that doesn't come out as convicted as they were last week. But then again, the young kids, man, they still want to get their burn out there, and they know there's a lot of points to be had on the field today. I don't see many stops by the Bowling Green defense.
No, I mean, you look at the quarterback for Maryland, Kasim Hill, both quarterbacks, him and Pigram were very good last week against Texas. Texas are a good defense. They were able to move the ball all around, and they were actually pretty good on defense themselves. The coach for Bowling Green, Mike Jinks, said he saw some encouraging signs from his defense last week. I'm not really sure what those were. He gave up 54 points and over 500 yards. I'm not really sure what you saw there. I got a feeling Bowling Green is one of those teams that all year have issues defensively. They normally do. I would probably lean – I mean, what are we getting here on a total? We're getting 66.
Yeah.
You got to tell you, man, I'll tell you what, man, these lines makers are good, aren't they? If anyone's good, it's them. Because that's right where I had this one. I don't know. I think you make a good point about the letdown game. I mean, you got a game next week against Temple, which is kind of a tough kind of, state-to-state matchup for Maryland. It's on the road. I would gun to my head take Maryland. I mean, and again, guys, I want to make this clear. When Donnie and I do this show, okay, we get on the air, Donnie, what time? 2 minutes before?
Yes.
We don't talk about what games we're going to talk about. Donnie just basically throws these out to me. So, if there's games that I don't have a big opinion on, it's why. I just try to hit every game we can. To me, this, Donnie, I think it's around the 20-point win for Maryland, 41-24 or something like that. It'll be close, but you wish you could get to that 14 number. Just have it at 14 and say, all right, I think we go out and win by 2 touchdowns or more. It's a close number. Both lines are very good, total and side.
Yeah, these are just some interesting matchups where you just point out and say, what's going to go on and take place. I think probably the game of the day, which again, ESPN Game Day is 365, 366. Clemson rolling in the College Station to take on Texas A&M. Line opened up 11 and a half. You're actually getting some movement, Jeff, here towards Clemson. 12 and a half now showing up in some outlets out here. Over, under. How about this one, Jeff? Opens up at Chris at 57. That's now down to 51 and a half. I know, look, sometimes in college football, when you look at it, when a defense is really good, sometimes you do want to still take the over because they're going to force a lot of 3 and outs, get extra possessions, and no wasted possessions. Because if you're a good defense, most good defenses in college aren't bend and don't break, where you give up 60 yards and you bow up in the red zone. Usually defenses are going to stymie you right away, force a 3 and out in under a minute, which is going to give you a lot of time to get after it. 2 good athletic football teams. Clemson's going to put up some points in this one. Are we getting some value now that line has slipped almost, 51 and a half at places?
Yeah, Donnie, I hate to do this, but I don't have an opinion on this game, really. People have asked me about it all week. It's a tough game. I mean, it's I would go Clemson just because I love everything they do. I think they're about as complete a team as you can get. The only thing you wonder about here is weather, Texas, Kyle Field. It's a tough atmosphere. College game days there, that kind of thing. But I mean, Clemson is a team that I don't really want to jump in front of. Donnie, want to remind everyone, kind of as we kind of hit getting close to the end of the show here. Want to let everyone know about the closing line on Sundays. We'll return tomorrow. I'll be on with Donnie Wright said. We'll basically take the same approach as we're doing on this show right now. The roles will be reversed, though, Donnie. I'll do the hosting, and we'll chat with you about NFL. We'll have some guests along the way. We did it. You did it last year. We'll bring it back. It'll be on at 12 o'clock Eastern, Donnie. Then we will have a short halftime show, kind of at the halftime of the 1 o'clock games, where we'll reconvene and have some fun there. And then it's football for the rest of the day. So I look forward to that, Donnie. That should be fun. We always know, for anyone who doesn't know, Donnie is the number one return on investment handicapper in the NFL on Handicapper Watchdog over the last 3 seasons. He's a very good handicapper in the NFL. He knows where to look. We look forward to that show tomorrow at 12 o'clock, Donnie.
Yeah, no, it'll be a lot of fun. And anybody knows my capping style, I do wait a couple weeks, but there's some leans in there. Of course, we're going to try to win some money in the first couple weeks and see what's what on that show. But I'm the common man's gambler, if that makes any sense. When you listen to me break down an NFL game, I'm not the guy that's going to go deep into analytics and tell you, they use run pass option 61% of the time, and that should work out there. Very rudimentary terms I like to use, and they've worked very well for me over the past couple of years. You know me, I played football my entire life. It's what I like to do. Same thing with college football. Once it gets going, you see some things that you can make sense of. There are a lot of advantages in college football because the hardest thing to do in college, Jeff, is look at the lines out there. You can get a pick'em game. You can get a 3-point game. You can get a 38-point game. Look at those lines in the NFL, Jeff, all lined up between pick'em 1, 6.5. A blowout is considered 9.5 in the NFL. So it's a lot different capping strategy. But we'll have some fun on the show as we did all last year. We'll come on 12 to 1, break the games down. We'll try to get at least one guest on per week to break down a game or two that they like from some different networks out there. Pop on at halftime. They're usually about a 15-minute show. See what we looked in the first half. Maybe there's some added advantages to the second half. But NFL's fun. We'll get some good responses tomorrow and have some fun. So keep on the lookout for that as well, Jeff. A couple more games here on the slate. Yeah, go ahead.
Tomorrow's guest actually Cordell Stewart. We're looking forward to having a Cordell on the show. He's going to come on and talk a little Steeler football. We look forward to that, Donnie. But just kidding, he's not going to be on the show.
I thought we were going to talk like Real Housewives of, his ex-wife was on the Real Housewives. Maybe get some inside information.
Was she? I think she was on one of those shows. Hey, Donnie, one other thing before we keep it going. I want to take 1 minute. Vitalis is asking my thoughts on Mac Miller. I talked about Mac Miller at length yesterday. Donnie's a bit older. He might not know Mac Miller. Maybe he does. But Donnie, you have these guys that you kind of liked when you were a kid. When I was a young kid in my 20s, Mac Miller was a guy related to a lot. He was a kid that I remember seeing when I was a kid, right when he was discovered. He, to me, is a top 10 in my personal favorites. I always loved Mac Miller. He had a mixtape called Kids. It was one of the best mixtapes you'll ever hear. He kind of got me through a lot of different things. I always enjoyed his music. His freestyles were always terrific. And I don't think there's anything worse than seeing a young kid die way too early. I was disgusted to see that yesterday. I was a gigantic fan of Mac Miller, and I'll miss his music. So I thank him for the music he put out. And listen, I'll take this quick second. If you know someone addicted to drugs, someone addicted to alcohol, get them to go to treatment. Try to get them to go to treatment. There are too many people that die from drugs in this country. It's getting sickening. I'm getting tired of it. And I know it's their choice, and I get that. But sometimes you just need someone to care about you. We say rest in peace to Mac Miller. Donnie, I know you didn't know much about Mac Miller, but he was a terrific rapper, and I don't say that to a lot. I think a lot of these guys are corny, but you talk about a talented individual. He was infectious as far as that's concerned. Yeah, 2 white rappers passing in 1 week, Jeff. One for drug reasons, which is always a shame. The other one got murdered on a diss track. So 2 dead rappers this week, it looks like, right? Who are we talking about? Was it MGK that everybody was bugging about, Jeff? I thought Machine Gun Kelly's diss was terrific. I thought if you're Eminem, I think it was a good way of kind of dealing with it. If you're MGK, I like MGK. I've never been a big Eminem guy, Donnie, throughout my entire life. I don't know. For whatever reason, I didn't relate a ton to it. I respect his talent and all, but I thought MGK's disc was awesome. I liked it a lot. But yeah, let's get back to the picks.
Yeah, let's see what we got here, Jeff. Let's move on a little bit later this evening, pick out a couple games. You're right. I did want to talk about this game. 371, 372, Kentucky and Florida. Line opens up at 14 and a half. Now it's dipped below 2 touchdowns. It seems like, Jeff, this series, more than any other in the past 5 years, is I like to call it like the Cleveland Browns series, where everybody's so sharp on Kentucky and so sure they're finally going to get their win. And it always ends up bad for Kentucky. What are we looking at from this? Because they're not at home this week. They're going to head down to the Swamp and play football. And you're right. Sometimes Florida playing the favorite, a la the Baltimore Ravens, laying a lot of points is usually not pretty good for your wallet. But can they handle them down in the Swamp in this one? New coach, new regime. Maybe things change.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I want to take Florida. I do. But here's the big problem you have with Florida every week. It's who's playing exactly for them. You look at disciplinary. It's every week someone's out for a disciplinary issue. Who's playing, who's not? It's just too much to keep track of. I think Florida are a good football team, but the big elephant in the room is their quarterback. I don't know if he's good enough. I don't know. For me, it's an avoidance. I think Kentucky will have a decent time in it, but I think they will struggle to move the ball because they want to run the ball. Generally, Florida pretty good against the run. To me, it's a pass.
Now, how about a rooting interest type game, Jeff? State of Pennsylvania, close and near and dear to our hearts. These two football teams aren't really near and dear to our hearts whatsoever because, as you know, if you live in the state of Pennsylvania or if you live in Philadelphia or South Jersey or, Western PA, there is a divide in the state where either you're from that Pittsburgh area or you're Western PA, you're a Penguins fan, Steelers fan, or you're a Philadelphia Flyers fan or you're a Phillies fan, whatever it is. There is a big divide. So when you think like, hey, not only the big men are from that Philadelphia region out there. You guys are really interested in Penn State, Pittsburgh. Not really. It's one of the teams that I actually like to root against is the Penn State Nittany Lions. They're going to be on the road here going to Pittsburgh. It's one of those interesting games because it's like a little brother, little cousin type thing because Pittsburgh is always amped up to play and Penn State tries to treat this game as just another game like, who are you? One of those where like the little brother finally comes up and, pounds on the big brother and pumps his chest like they did a couple years ago. But Penn State always like to say this isn't really a rivalry because we are the state university. Lines dropping around to about 7.5. Jeff, can Pittsburgh hang around? They didn't really get tested last week. We all saw on national TV or during prime time in mid-afternoon, Appalachian State should have beat Penn State. But sometimes you like to see a team's mettle tested early on so they can bounce back and not just roll their helmets out and go play football again. Did that help Penn State last week, Jeff, to go in versus Pitt? Can they go on the road and win by more than a touchdown here?
Yeah, I think it helped them. I think, they were able to get out with a win. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do, obviously, just get a win. I think, probably practice was tough, and I'm sure James Franklin, the rah-rah idiot that he is, I'm sure he made it clear, don't take this team lightly. I wonder about Pittsburgh's defense as it really improved. You can get a 7, Donnie, really, at a few different books. There are not many of them out there, but you can still get a 7. You get a 7 at Bookmaker right now. You get a 7 at Just Bet right now. I think if you're getting 7, I'd lean Pittsburgh or I'd lean Penn State. I'm sorry. I wonder about Pittsburgh. But let me ask you, Donnie, do you think they'll play for Mac Miller today in Pittsburgh? He's from that area.
Actually, you're right. You know what? I didn't even think to factor that in because I did see the Pittsburgh Pirates tweet something out when he threw out like the first pitch with his Pirates jersey on. I don't know if they're going to really play for him, but they'll be playing his music in the stands. Like one of those guys like a regional type guy. Like when you come to Philadelphia, they're always going to open up with Meek Mill and the Eagles. Now maybe you can get that battle rallying cry there to try to do something. I don't think he's going to have any, depending on the game, but that's going to be a packed atmosphere at Heinz Field. Pittsburgh, Western PA is football country. And when Pittsburgh has big games, a la the Miamis come to town, Penn State comes to town, they're going to pack that place out today. It should be fun.
Yeah, the big question is, has Pittsburgh taken a step? And the big question is, has Penn State taken a step? They lost a lot of talent last year. Was last week kind of a microcosm of who they are? I think a lot of people will consider that. But it's a tough game. At 7 points, I think there's value now in Penn State. Donnie, I want to talk about this one. 405, 406, added game. Oregon, Portland State. Donnie, 81 on a total in this game.
Yeah, 5 dimes got it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but let's put this into perspective. Keep this in mind. Portland State lost last week 72-19 to not Oregon, not USC, not, Arizona State.
Eastern Washington or something.
They lost 72-19 to Nevada.
Damn.
I mean, what is Oregon going to do to Portland State in this game? I mean, Portland State cannot stop anybody. I mean, I'm honestly, I believe, Donnie, right now, if you said to me, hey, listen, you, Donnie, and I listeners are going to go out and face this Portland State defense, I'm confident we can move the ball against them. Yeah. I do.
I think you can line up at guard, Jeff. I think you're stout enough to line up at guard. I'll run a little read option back there, maybe RPO action.
I'm thinking I go back to my old stomping grounds and play quarterback, Donnie. That's what I think I do. I could toss the ball pretty far. I threw an egg one time, an entire city block. I think I could do this. But listen, you're laying 48 in this game. I mean, I think Oregon absolutely trashed Portland State. I think they put up 70 points here. I think it's 70-10 or something. I don't ever argue and say you should lay 48, but Donnie, if I can, I would take a look at this one as laying points in. I would lay it with Miami. I think they absolutely destroy poor Savannah State today. And I think Howard-Kent State is a fun one. I know you know Kent State pretty well, Donnie. They're wanting to up the tempo this year with Woody Barrett at quarterback. Howard, Donnie, Kayla Newton, Cam's brother, 530 yards last week. This kid is really good. He destroyed Ohio. Why can't he destroy Kent State? Over 65.5 looks pretty good here.
Yeah, no, Chris opened that line, Jeff. As you know, with these lower level games, they don't come out all week. You can't prep for the line on Monday and Tuesday. They usually come out like late Friday, sometimes early Saturday mornings. Looking at that Kent game, Jeff, opened up 14.5, now down to 10. You can actually get it a -8 at 5 dimes. I'll watch it. It'll be on one of those ESPN Plus or ESPN3 applications here. I've watched more Kent State football than anybody should ever in their entire life. But before we get out of here, Jeff, got a couple minutes left. There's one more game I wanted to hit, and it's late as hell. It's a little Pac-12 after dark. It's one of the teams where I want to be wrong on, because I crushed the hiring of Herm Edwards for Arizona State. But they had a very nice game last week. You say, Donnie, it's UTSA. I mean, come on. But you have to look at the way the teams are prepared to play in the game and how they dominate and use that to their advantage. I thought Herm Edwards had his team correctly prepared last week and rolled UTSA. Now coming back, here's a measuring stick game for Herm Edwards. Can he get his team to play well here? Because you looked at Michigan State, maybe not playing all that well last week, now coming into town, but you're playing out west. It's going to be a little bit warmer than they're used to at this point. Can Herm Edwards get them together? Because the one thing I think Herm Edwards did well, Jeff, is surrounded himself with coaches from the early onset that looks like they have the college game down, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, where he might just be able to be that CEO and not really meddle and get in the way, but be used for advice and leaning on it. What do you think about this game? Just to set it up for you. Opened up at 7 and -4, now sitting at 4.5. So maybe that pinnacle line was a little bit early, but they're getting points at home here in a big battle for them to see where they're actually at in their season.
Donnie, someone asked me before the season started, who was one of the best hires in the college football? I think it was Herm Edwards. I really believe that. Yes. And let me tell you why. Herm Edwards is in a country right now where college football is under attack, college basketball under attack. A lot of coaches doing things they shouldn't do. I mean, what person would you rather have walk into your house and say, I'm going to take care of your kid. He's going to be all right here. I mean, you trust Herm Edwards. He's a trustworthy guy. He's like a father kind of figure to your kid. I don't think he's going to do a ton on the field, but he's hired the right people. I think he's a motivator. I think he's a guy people play for, and I think the kids love him. And I'll tell you what, this team's pretty talented. N'Keal Harry is a terrific receiver. Manny Wilkins, a good quarterback. Their defense was pretty solid last week. I know it was UTSA, but you're getting some points here in a late game at home. The problem is the numbers dropped. I mean, 6 is long gone. I mean, you're getting 4.5 at this point. You're basically saying that you think Arizona State can win this football game. We saw a close call last week. My big question is, has the Arizona State defense taken a step forward? Because that's always been their undoing. They can score points, but can they get off the field? That's kind of the big problem. Michigan State was kind of humbled almost last week. This is a tough trip, though. It's kind of this is going to be the toughest defense Arizona State's going to face all season. It's a real chess match here. I got to tell you, though, I'm more inclined to think that Arizona State struggles on defense here. This is a big, good offense. This is a lot different than the road runners of UTSA. I think at this late stage, I would take the Spartans.
All right, our time is up here on the show on the closing line for Saturday afternoon. Join me in the Big Man on Campus tomorrow at 12 noon sharp, breaking down an NFL Sunday. Get your fantasy rosters in check. We'll go over the games game by game. We'll have my man Alex, who used to call the AK-47 from the Score Network, on tomorrow with us, breaking down a few games right around 12:20, 12:30 tomorrow. We'll have some fun kicking around. As I said again, me and the Big Man on Campus will be on at halftime as well. Hopefully, you guys can find some winners today. We're just about to kick off the day. This has been the closing line on sportsbookreview.com. I'm Donnie Rightside. He's the Big Man on Campus, folks, and you should have a good day today. Leave with something, Jeff. Leave with a winner real quick. Come on, go.
All right. I'll go with which one did I want to go with? I got to be honest. I think Oregon absolutely destroys Portland State. I'd lay the points here. I think one of those good old Oregon fashion wins. Oregon wins 65-7.
There you go, folks. Lay the wood. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day.